Okay. We'll approve the Park and Rec meeting minutes at the end, because I'm not sure if they're in our iPads or not. But today we have with us Mr. Hardy. I contacted him and asked him if he can give us an update on Lock 3. Beginning of summer, if you remember last year, there were some things that we're working on. And with us getting ready to go into recess and coming up on the Labor Day concert, which if any of you are aware, last time Cameo was here, it was, I think, and still is the largest event we've had down there, because the fire department actually had to say, okay, no more people could come in, which is a good thing, meaning the concert sold out. But with that, it brings its opportunities for us to test our best practices, procedures. So Mr. Hardy's here to give us an update on just where we are with Lock 3 for the year, and then, so thank you, sir.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, happy to provide a general update, and then what I told Chairman Neal is that as we talked about last time, through Reimagine the Civic Commons, we've been conducting a survey throughout the summer, asking folks not only at the park, but online and elsewhere, and we'd be happy to come out to ward meetings as well. What do you want to see at Lock 3, and what types of atmosphere, events, physical structures would you like to see there? So that's been going incredibly well. We're up to almost 1,000 responses to that survey, and we hope to get more through August. So when council reconvenes, if it pleases the committee, I'd be happy to put together a more formalized presentation with those numbers. But overall, things have been going really well. Weather has not been too much of a factor at Lock 3 this year, thank goodness. As you all know, it's an outdoor venue, so the city takes a certain amount of risk when we have events. So far, so good. Our festival season has been going extremely well. Rib, White, and Blue did very, very well. I actually worked down at Lock 3 on the 3rd of July just to see how things were going, and it was incredible to see, as we always get for Hotel California, about 5,000 people in the park, so that went incredibly well. One of the things that Councilman Neal wanted me to mention that we have been able to implement is that for the first time in the summer season, we do have now the capability at the beer carts and the beer and the vendor huts, if you will, the little houses, to swipe credit cards. So that has made things incredibly smooth as it relates to not long lines. Long lines lead to people getting frustrated people lead to other things. So things have been incredibly smooth. Concessions have been strong. The credit cards also will allow us, even though they're not, people still pay in cash, the credit cards will allow us to get better data as to what people are buying, at what price, et cetera, that we can also provide to council. But that has been implemented. We're still working on a global point of sale solution, but at least we have now the credit card swipes across the park. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we will have Cameo coming up. One of the things that we instituted last year that worked very well, we've done it again this year, is pre-sale of tickets. So we have a certain amount, which is essentially 3/4 of the capacity of the park is pre-sold. So we kind of have a good idea who's coming, how many. So unlike in previous years where you have no idea, and a lot of it's based on whether if you're going to get an onslaught, we have the ability to track that ahead of time. I don't have the current numbers for Cameo in front of me, but I can get them before the 7 p.m. meeting tonight. But my understanding is I've gotten an email of ticket sales would have been slow, so I'm sure they're going right around where we were last time Cameo came. So another thing we did this year is every year we bid our security, our non-APD security. In years past, it's been hall security that's won the bid. We actually went with Tenable this year to try someone new, and it's actually been working out incredibly well. So we think that there's more eyes that we feel that are checking the festival crowds. I can tell you personally, in years past, my wife and I would just kind of walk into a festival and they would kind of look at you, and every now and then they'd check a purse. Tenable has been very good about it, and with everything that's gone on with safety in large public gatherings, I feel very confident in both Tenable's ability and what they've shown this year, as well as obviously we'll have APD always at our large crowd and large festival events. We have a few new events this year that will be coming up in the month of August. One is the Taste of Ireland. So for the first time ever, all the Hibernian clubs in Summit County, all 3 of them, will be coming together for a traditional, actual Irish cultural festival like they do in Cleveland. So that will be a new event in downtown Akron. We'll obviously have Earthquaker Day coming up. We had an incredibly successful, I thought, African American festival. We have Cameo coming up. We have Signal Tree Festival coming up. So August and Labor Day weekend, we don't stop, as Councilman Neal talked about, until after Labor Day. So that's sort of my general update. I'm happy to answer questions. And as I said, when council reconvenes, we'll first of all have Cameo update ticket sales tonight for council members and committee members who are interested. And then when council reconvenes, I'll have the results of the survey that I can share, and we can talk through sort of what both folks who come to Lock 3 and people who don't, what they're looking for the next 15 years of Lock 3. But we're still on pace to meet or exceed last year's attendance goals, which have gone up every year since its inception. It's tough to say because winter is also lumped into that, so it depends on how rough the winter is. But yeah, it was great. We even had, for the first time in a long time, we had a different musical act at 4th of July this year. I don't know if anybody went down. I was down there. We actually had the Ohio National Guard Reserve Band, which they were incredibly entertaining. Nothing against the Akron Symphony. They do a great job. But we tried something different this year, and it was incredible. We got a lot of great responses. And, of course, if you love the Akron Symphony, you can catch them in the neighborhoods here coming up. They've started that as well. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns committee members might have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions from members of the committee or members of council? I have just relaying a comment or question I get from people in the community all the time, and that is, and maybe you're getting this in the survey, how can they have input in the concerts?
Yeah.
What I found, because I look at what's happening here and in Cleveland and Canton and as far away as Detroit, because people travel in the summer, you know, they'll travel to go to the concerts. Columbus has a fabulous jazz concert that they have that I think takes place right around the time of the African Festival, or either the week before or the week after. And Cleveland with Edgewater Park, Luke Easter Park,
Yeah.
Kane Park, they do a lot of concerts. And the dollar amounts that people are paying, where ours are $10, up there they may pay 25, sometimes 35. So I think that's the one thing people would like to be able to have an input
Sure.
on, you know, some of the concerts that have come, and I've one of the big things is, of course, more jazz artists.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, those are the things I've heard. I'm happy to hear that we've increased the opportunity for the credit card sales, because that was one of the complaints along lines. And, you know, the added benefit of being able to glean that data and find what we're using is going to help us as well. But those are the only things that I've had. I'm interested to see the numbers. Is there anything else for any? Oh, Mr. Mobian?
My comment is not directly related to Lock 3,
Sure.
but I've not been to Lock 4, but I've heard about Lock 4. It seems like it's the same night as the Art Museum. Is that correct? The Art Museum has been Thursday nights.
Yep.
So
We only have overlap one night a month with
the Art Museum?
with the Art Museum, so Dusk is actually, it doesn't overlap at all. They are on a different Thursday night than third Thursdays at Lock 4. We've done some different things with Lock 4 this year. We certainly have continued the partnership with the Devil Strip, and they do a live concert there. We still have Lock Bottom Jazz and a few other things. We've partnered with Downtown Akron Partnership to actually do a cocktail hour on Cascade Plaza and do some things to try and connect people over to Lock 4. One of the things that you'll see, because I'm starting to see it in some of the preliminary data on the surveys, is people don't generally, even people who come to Lock 3 multiple times a summer, have no idea where Lock 4 is or where Lock 2 is. The Bowery development's going to change Lock 4, but Lock 2 is also an incredibly beautiful spot that's right down the towpath. So we definitely have some work to do on the programming side as well as just the public perception side.
Yeah. My main reason for bringing it up is that I heard there was jazz at Lock 4. I know there was jazz at the Art Museum. And I don't think you have anything to do with the Art Museum, do you?
Not anymore. We used to fund it, but they're now on their own. Yeah.
I can only tell you, when we sit there, you can't believe that you're in Akron. It feels like you're in a big city. It's just been awesome. I've attended like 3 of the concerts, and it's just been well attended and just very nice, and a lot of people there. Bud and Susie Rogers have just donated a wonderful legacy to this city, and it's being well used.
Good.
So it's been remarkable.
And I'd be remiss, Mr. Chair, if I didn't also mention that August will bring the 2nd annual Rubber City Jazz and Blues Festival that Theron Brown started and is now. So the city participates by having one of the main headline acts at Lock 3 during the festival, free of charge for the community. So that festival is growing, based in part on Theron's growth in his own genre, but that could turn out to be a huge thing. They're anticipating a larger event this year, which is good. You never know after the first year. More venues, more artists, but the city is involved with that as well, and we always underwrite a headlining act as part of Theron's festival. Well, I shouldn't say always. Last year and this year we will be doing that, and we hope to continue that in the future. But you bring up a good point about how do the acts get picked. One of the things that I'm trying to do is diversify some of that. We don't have great data. We'll have better data to share when the council reconvenes in terms of what types of music people want to see. I think that getting more input in that is important. The other thing that we've heard is it doesn't always have to be Friday and Saturday nights, especially for more market rate ticketed events. So in partnership with Akron Civic Theater, we've been looking at, is there a possibility during warm weather months to do Tuesday or Wednesday night concerts outdoors that are more market rate for people who are willing to pay the ticket price? That way we can bring in more headlining artists, because a lot of times we are constrained by what the city obviously can afford, and that gives you a certain range of artists at a certain time period. But we've heard, as you have mentioned, Councilman, a desire to see lots of different types of acts. They're at all different price ranges, but depending on what people are willing to pay, and it won't surprise you that so far the trend is that people are willing to pay for the people they want to see. Not insane, they still want it to be accessible, it's a public venue, but they're willing to pay a little more to get a little more. So how can we maintain our free or reduced programming that the city will always try to commit itself to, while offering some more market rate opportunities to bring in artists that we know people want to see, but they're also willing to pay a little bit more to see them?
Something that crossed my mind, I don't know if we have a relationship with outside promoters that contact us, but even more importantly, a relationship with the surrounding park cities and their park and rec departments, because I know a lot of them have an agreement where if we bring you in, you cannot perform within before our concert. But I'll use the OJs, local group. I think they were just down in Cincinnati. They may have been in Columbus or somewhere, but a group that's not local, but if they're traveling, to cut down our expenses. If they're in Pittsburgh or Detroit in a certain period of time, to bring them here, it cuts down on the travel. Those types of things, broker with other groups, so that we can, hey, if you're going to bring them, we're going to bring them, maybe we can leverage to get a better price. I don't know if we've ever done anything like that.
We haven't necessarily historically, but that's exactly the type of thing that we're looking at now. So I've had 2 meetings with outside promoters where we would obviously work out a deal to make sure the city's costs are covered, but they're the ones that really, as you know, facilitate those higher end artists. And we shouldn't be afraid of that. It might mean that people who want to go will pay more of a $20 or $30 ticket price as opposed to free. But for people who want to go see the OJs, they might be willing to do that. So we are talking to some outside promoters now to see if something might work. One of the partnerships that, I wouldn't necessarily call it a partnership yet, but an exploration, if you will, is recently connected with one of your colleagues in Cleveland, Councilman Zone, who was instrumental in oh gosh, it's a metro park. It's the lake. It's right by the lake. It's an outdoor music venue. Edgewater. Edgewater Park.
Yeah.
They really wanted to come down to Lock 3 because they're not getting the crowds we are, but they're paying for some of the larger artists. So they're coming down, we're swapping sort of success stories because they're doing better at funding through promoter relationships, higher end acts, but they're a slightly smaller venue, is my understanding, and they're not seeing the $4,000 or $5,000 a night for a tribute artist, if you will, like we see on Rock the Locks. And you're right, there are people who drive miles and miles to see these acts on Friday nights. I know this only because after Tom Petty passed away last year, all the Tom Petty tribute acts raised their price. So much so that we couldn't afford to bring in Full Moon Fever last year, this summer. I actually got a phone call from a lady who lives in Pittsburgh who, this is the free concert she drives to Akron to see because she loves this band. I had to tell her why, and she understood, but there is such a draw now that, again, we want to see how we can add to the programming and diversify it and meet different price points versus eliminating or changing what's working, because there are some things that are definitely working at Lock 3 that bring down tremendous crowds that even Edgewater Park and Kane Park are envious of us, because we kind of have the market now on the tribute acts and sort of the day in, day out type of entertainment, where we haven't been as successful, and this is where you're absolutely correct, is those promoter relationships and the more market rate concerts that we can bring into Lock 3. So we're looking at that now. My hope would be that as early as late fall, but more likely next summer season, we would have at least one or two of those types of concerts to try it out, to see if people really would come down and pay a more market rate price to see. And you bring up a good point, because our partnership with Akron Civic Theater is incredible, because Howard's connected into the Cleveland market. So there are folks, you're right, who basically choose. Like the promoters will say you can play at Playhouse Square, the Agora, or Lock 3. Which one do you want? You can't have all because of because of your touring schedule and because of the exclusivity agreements. And so we have to do a better job, and I think we can, at making Lock 3 an irresistible venue for artists to choose to play when they think about Northeast Ohio. And I think we can get there.
Thank you. I mean, if there aren't any more, I know we have some other committee meetings. I'm looking forward to the report afterwards. Looking forward to being able to see about expanding partnerships and giving citizens a chance to give input on what they would like. So thank you for sharing with us this afternoon.
No worries. Thank you.
If there's nothing else to come before us, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
The Utilities Committee to order. First only piece of legislation we have is ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee, without the formality of advertising for bids, to enter into contracts with FCX Performance Incorporation for the purchase of 20-inch valve gearbox assemblies for large diameter valves for use in the city's water supply system and declaring an emergency. All right.
Mr. Kilby, I need a motion for the minutes.
Oh, yeah, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Loesch, so tell us what this is about, okay?
I'll tell him. Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry. Mr.
members of the committee, this was something we passed on June 2nd, this legislation. And we didn't have that, it was to be put out for bid. We wanted it sole source. Cleveland Valve and Gauge Company is this FCX company. They've actually taken one of our large valves that we cut out up to Cleveland, and they made these gear reduction boxes for us that we're purchasing. So to give you an idea, if we had to replace one of these valves, it'd be somewhere in the range of $17,000 to $20,000, okay? Because of what they've done, they've taken these, they've made these gearboxes that we adapt to the valve, and we can do it for around $5,000 a valve. So, but when we did the legislation, we didn't say, without the formality, heaven forbid, we want to sole source this.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. I read the legislation. Mr. Loesch, do you have anything to add? Okay. So, I see the total cost is $25,000, and you mentioned $5,000. Does that mean that we get 5 of these?
We're going to do 5 of them, yes, sir.
Okay. So, where will they be placed?
Well, mostly on Exchange Street, where we're doing the improvements, Exchange and Main, where we have the big 20-inch valves.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from any other council members? Okay, with that is,
Can we get suspension of the rules, because we want to get this moving?
yeah, I think we can. Do I have a motion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, with that, anything else to come before the Public Utilities Committee? If not, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Health and Social Service will be meeting in 1 minute or less. Bleachers out there yesterday. I didn't realize they had open house, but I guess it's for special events. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk. I don't see anything on here. Is there anything?
Should be on there. Oh, you haven't met in a while, that's why.
Huh?
You haven't met in quite some time, right?
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'd like to call the Health and Social Services Committee to order. Committee members are present. The only one that's not here is Mr. Freeman, I believe. We don't have any past minutes to approve, so we'll go right into the legislation for today. We have a resolution offered by Councilwoman Samples and myself. It's a resolution opposing the proposed changes in federal regulations governing the Title X National Family Planning Program, declaring support for access to all legal family planning services and related counseling, and declaring an emergency. As you look at this legislation, you will see that there are several items in here in which should bring a lot of concern to those of us who are lawmakers in the city. You see where the Planned Parenthood is the only provider of family planning services in a 9-county area. And you see in the third whereas, where they are serving approximately 77 family planning patients they served in 2017, providing 3,267 pregnancy tests 2,675 HIV tests, 724 cancer screenings, and 17,065 sexually transmitted infection tests and treatment. I mean, all of those diseases that they are treating or attempting to treat would give us reason to pause, because if you were not treating particularly the sexually transmitted diseases, you can imagine how many people could be infected in this community. Not only that, we have a foundation that is certainly supporting the work that the Planned Parenthood is doing, and they stated that efforts to block Planned Parenthood and other family planning providers from receiving Title X funds, because they provide the full spectrum of legal family planning services and counsel patients about them, could reduce low-income women and teenagers' access to contraceptives and other family planning services. It is the one area, if you go down to the fourth whereas, is the area that people tend to focus on, and that is the part about abortion. Again, abortion is a legal service, and it's something that the patient and her doctor decide, but it's a very small portion of the services that are provided by Planned Parenthood. So with that as a summary, a backdrop of this resolution, are there concerns, questions, comments by council members, committee members first? Hearing none, are there council members present who would like to make a statement? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kamer.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Obviously, I'm doing some research today, and yeah, I am concerned about the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually the fifth whereas clause in regards to abortion. I believe Title X does not provide any funding for abortion, but I'm going to ask you for clarification on that, since you're the sponsor of this. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. The federal funds do not go to.
So basically, Title X is one to take away any funding or all funding from Planned Parenthood. But obviously, that's an organization that performs these wonderful services, but obviously, no funding from Title X supports the abortion. So I just wanted to make sure that clarification is correct, because you're the sponsor of this resolution.
That is my understanding, that
okay.
federal dollars are not used for
Because
abortion.
I'm still doing my research here.
Because
so.
people tend to talk about that piece, and that's why I brought it up.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'll continue doing my research before this evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions or concerns? Hearing none, may I have a motion? Yeah, suspension of the rules, please. And a favorable report. All in favor? Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you.
You abstained?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I hope I would not be abstaining from my own motion, a resolution.
That's what I was, I heard you say abstain, that's all.
No, I just said abstention as part of the, I wasn't sure
Okay.
what people were doing. But thank you. No further business before the committee. We are adjourned. Thank you.